Credible Witness is brought to you by the Rethinking Church Initiative.
My mom raised us in church. We grew up Baptist. I was a part of a very healthy church that really helped me to grow and believe in myself. You know, in the Black church, you learn your gifts in church. If I'm an orator, I'm going to find that out in Black church first. If I'm a musician, I'm going to find that out. If I'm going to be an actress, these things happen first in the Black church. The first person who told me I could do anything in the world was Sister Dixon. She said, Brianna, you can be Oprah, you can be an astronaut, you can be a president. Brianna, you can do anything, you know? Yeah. And I was just like, she must be right, you know?
So many of us struggle with a sense of calling. What are we truly called by God to be and do in this world? We can see that struggle throughout the pages of Scripture. Calling is often uncomfortable or dangerous. I'm thinking of Hebrew Bible stories like Jacob's wrestling with God to become Israel. Joseph's dream turned nightmare, turned fulfilled prophecy that meant the flourishing of his family and the world. Or calling often requires stepping out into the darkness of faith. Here, Jesus' disciples offer more than enough examples, whether it's Peter dropping his nets and stepping out of the boat, or the Apostle Paul's dramatic conversion. But for Brianna Parker, that sense of calling existed from a very early age, and it came with confidence and radiant joy.
I would have these weird days. I would say, Mom, I don't think I should go to school. I want to spend time with God. And she'd be like, okay.
That calling was to preach the word of God to the church, and she accepted it wholeheartedly.
And so one of those days is when I started to get visions, and I knew I was called. And I said, Mom, I'm going to tell you a secret. Don't tell anybody. I'm called to ministry. I'm called to preaching. She said, okay, I won't tell anybody. My mama told everybody.
Brianna accepted that calling wholeheartedly. But what happens when the calling we so deeply feel and know and accept as inherent to our identity isn't validated by our community?
Now, here's the tricky thing. What I did not realize, because of how encouraging the church was, my pastor didn't believe in women in ministry.
Is that right?
I know. Huh?
So you were surrounded in this nurturing space that was calling for these gifts from you.
And I was in the pulpit every month with my pastor.
Were you?
For prayer. So I didn't know he didn't believe in women in ministry.
In Brianna's community of origin, women were not welcome in ministry. Preaching was a man's calling. Well, for Brianna, hearing no from her pastor wasn't going to prevent her from saying yes to God and receiving her calling.
My mother says every day is opposite day for Brianna.
And what does she mean when she's saying that?
I don't care about anybody's no.
Oh.
Ever. Oh, no? Let's see. So every day is opposite day for me. And it's really a faith thing more than it is confidence, in myself. And so I was able to say yes to ministry, I think at 15.
15.
I knew I was called when I was 15. So I was always a person of faith. Great faith. I've overcome a lot of obstacles. I've had a lot of challenges that I just kind of expected to come my way. And I said, thank you for all that you've done. I wouldn't be this person without you. By the way, I've accepted my calling.
I'm Nikki Toyamasito, and this is Credible Witness, a collection of stories and wisdom from faithful people wrestling with and bearing witness to the credibility of Christian life today. Each episode is an invitation to listen generously and courageously to one person, navigating social tension and moral complexity, negotiating doubts, struggles, and fears, overcoming obstacles and pursuing justice, and living out the convictions of their faith. And every voice reminds us that the church is called to be a credible witness to Christ, a living reality of hope, justice, truth, and love.
Black brilliance is like finding our way when no one has made a way. Black brilliance exposes things that everyone else has ignored. Black brilliance is seeing something that is necessary to expose to the wider world to benefit your community. It's not using your gifts in traditional ways, but flipping everything on its head to bring the world something new. Black brilliance, when we can see it and appreciate it, it leads to Black joy. Black people need more joy always. Black joy is more than just being happy. Black joy looks like someone who, I don't know if you remember on social media, you saw these pictures of like Black men frolicking.
Yes.
And it was like, what are they doing?
Yes.
Black joy is when you can be a 200-something pound Black man, maybe with locks in your hair, and frolic. Because we don't get to frolic.
That's right.
We have to work hard. We have to provide. We have to do all these things that the world says. But we don't always get to just revel in joy and do things that don't look cool or normal or the standard. And so I think those things are necessary in the Black community.
When I hear the way that Reverend Bree talks about Black brilliance and the ingenuity and creativity and power of finding a way where no one has made a way, I'm reminded of the way that the Black church has embodied this brilliance in the world. From the history of hush harbors, these joyful church services hidden from the slave owners in the days of American chattel slavery, as you can read in the pages of Toni Morrison's Beloved, to the need for incorporated Black churches in the segregated Jim Crow era, to the origins of the gospel, R&B, and jazz arising from the tradition of Black spirituals. This is how the Black church has embodied brilliance. That brilliance is a beacon of light for a lukewarm Christianity of compromise, an exemplar of courage and confidence and hope. Now, I'm so grateful for Reverend Bree's sharing about her experiences in Black church leadership. Really, her stories that come from the heart of the Black church. I appreciated that she didn't condition or caveat her story with any footnotes or filters, because I recognized that her even just talking to us was an act of extraordinary vulnerability and risk. She gives us a glimpse of what family business looked like and how it impacted her calling and her faith. In this episode with Brianna Parker, we discuss the core identity, values, and gifts of the Black church, as well as the role Christianity plays in the broader Black community and Black culture, the meaning of authenticity in the church, how Brianna's early sense of a spiritual calling to be a preacher met the realities of a church that didn't have a place for women in ministry. It's a conversation that exemplifies rethinking and reforming the church, exploring the depth and extent of the gospel, and ultimately finding confidence in one's calling to brilliance and joy. The Reverend Dr. Brianna K. Parker is a researcher, a preacher, and a leader focused on catalyzing change in the Black church. She's the author of I Still Believe in the Black Church. Working with ministries all over the United States, she helps churches understand the unique challenges that the Black community faces, particularly through her work in founding the Black Millennial Cafe, or BMC, a consulting group using data science and a deep understanding of the spiritual and cultural nuances across generations in the Black community. Brianna helps us understand the unique gift the Black church can be, not just to the communities they serve, but to the entire church in all of its diversity and to the world. Brianna, thank you so much for coming in and talking with us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
I wanted to start by asking Reverend Bree for a bit of context about the Black church, its identity, and its values. Her work and ministry helps Black churches around the United States understanding the communities they are trying to serve. She's trying to bring contextual truths derived from data, along with spiritual, cultural insights that can help churches more effectively reach people and offer the transformative power of the gospel. Brianna honed in on a value for authenticity, but cautioned about total transparency.
Authenticity matters. And not so much like, all the pastors want to be in skinny jeans and it's not like relatability, it's authenticity. So whatever's authentic to you, if a 3-piece suit, if Vans and khakis that are a little baggy, whatever it is. But I think we really misunderstand authenticity.
Interesting.
When we did our initial research, one thing that mattered most to Black millennials, we really wanted to see Black churches get back to the core. Who did we say we were going to be? What did we set out to do? And, if you go back decades, what did we say we wanted to accomplish? How do we want to treat people? What does this look like? And so seeing the Black church, come to its most authentic self.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes people think authenticity is transparency.
Interesting. Tease out the difference. What's the difference there?
Yeah, so transparency, I think, misses millennials sometimes, because sometimes you want to be so transparent and you want to be so in the in crowd with young adults or millennials that you tell stories that could be a lot of things offensive, that are just outdated and antiquated. And, you're always the hero in your little story. We can see through those things. And so transparency sometimes when a pastor's, I used to sell drugs and, I was in a gang and it was 43 years ago. You know what I mean? This kind of transparency, you've been riding off of this, for decades, and you're far from that today. And so I think authenticity and transparency, those are a little different. I think we should be sometimes less transparent and more authentic.
Less transparent and more authentic.
Yeah, some stuff we don't need to see.
What would that look like to be less transparent and more authentic?
So less telling me all about your life on your social media and telling me how you stay married and the fights you have and all those things, because a lot of times they're not true. And, stop selling me this story. And instead, come to me in your most pure self, telling me whatever truth it is you want me to know. And I remember when we did this study, it really got to me that Black millennials didn't need you to have all the answers, even in the pulpit. And that was different for me. I'm a church kid from the South. So, you better know this, or why are you up there? That's not how Black millennials felt. We can come to the conclusion together. You know what I mean? We can figure this out together. You don't have to come with all the answers, but I want to know you studied. I want to know you tried. I want to know you take this moment seriously. And I think authenticity says, when you go before your congregation, there are some topics that I have not preached on that you guys have talked about. And I'm just trying to find my own footing, I don't want to say anything that I don't think I can really stand behind. And I want to make sure whatever it is that I can find a biblical truth to it, or I think God is pleased. That's authenticity, more than showing us all the behind the scenes of your life. And it's always pretty. And if it's not pretty, you're telling us this beautiful story about why it's not pretty.
One of the more groundbreaking ways Reverend Bree is trying to rethink church is through data. That means going beyond the anecdotal evidence, the intuitions, the hunches, or the stale traditions or cultural trappings that don't make an impact on real life. But what I see in her approach to collecting data is listening. She listens with a pastor's heart, listening to people, understanding people, and allowing statistical data to inform a congregation's service to its community in order to make it more relevant and responsive to a need.
My specific space is more Black church and community data. Because we couldn't stick with millennials because there was such a data deficit in Black communities and Black churches. And so, if I wanted to know how many people were in prison, I can find that. But if I wanted to know something that churches and nonprofits could take to the bank in data, as opposed to anecdotal evidence, it wasn't there. Because Black communities and churches have not had that. We've only had anecdotal evidence. Well, we know this because we have so many people at our church who have had this issue or had this concern. Let me tell you what surprised us in the last election cycle, because, Black Millennial Cafe works really hard during election cycle, whether that's politician or a PAC or whatever it is. It was just disheartening. We found out that 75% of Black churchgoers believe we were politically powerless. 75.
75% of Black churchgoers believe that the Black church was powerless?
Politically powerless.
Wow.
Black people who are in church every Sunday hearing about the power of God and the power that transcends, that somehow doesn't go beyond the steps of the church. So that we had to change strategy very quickly But it was so disappointing to believe this. But we changed our strategy and we made it work. And we kind of had to go back to the PBS, like every vote counts. Like we had to, because they didn't believe we had power. And I just don't know how believers, that's disheartening for believers to believe we don't have power. The other thing was, we have so much hope in our future. But when we looked at young men, young Black males, and how they felt about women in leadership, child, we're in bad shape.
What'd you find?
They don't believe in women in leadership.
This is young Black men.
These are young adults.
Wow.
Yeah. So what does that mean for our future? I mean, you have Kamala Harris. We watch women succeed and excel, but it's not made young Black males happy or feel like more confident or feel like a partner to Black women. And so I can only imagine how that's going to play out in relationships and partnerships.
In a culture which prizes authenticity, truth, and honest expression of our calling and identity, we have to remain clear-eyed and courageously receptive to statistics that we might wish weren't true. These stats about self-perceptions of political powerlessness of the Black church or young men's perspectives on the leadership of women in ministry. They provide interesting and useful ways to start meaningful conversations that don't just lead to change, but lead to improved community relationships. Brianna helped to clarify how the African American community understands church as a pillar of Black life and culture, even if it sometimes doesn't come along with belief or practice. There's still a depth of belonging in the church at a cultural, religious level. In other words, it's not the I'm spiritual but not religious phenomenon. It's the religious but not spiritual factor that is impacting the Black church and the broader Black community.
We talk about Black church and Black community. We're in an entanglement. When Black people are in an entanglement with church and community, it's actually where the magic is, right? Because you're going to be you can find Black people who have not grown up in church. You will not find Black people who have not accepted or lived Black church culture. If they're in Black communities, they go together. Ham and cheese, peanut butter and jelly. Like you don't, which is why you have moments. I remember we were doing the study and they would call it the state of the church, but it was white people. And so when they were doing it, they found out that there were a couple categories, right? They were spiritual and not religious. We've seen that before. Well, Black people had not seen religious and not spiritual.
Is that because that sort of makes no sense?
But it does, because we're in an entanglement. So even if you don't believe in God, you still want your grandmother to be funeralized by the pastor at the church. You still want a pastor to marry you.
Yes.
You still want your children blessed. And if you don't want your children blessed, you still go as the village and the godparents when your friends' children are blessed.
Yes.
So those kind of things, we really can't separate them. And I think that is the magic, to know that even if you don't believe in God, I don't have to explain to you an inside joke. I don't have to share Black church culture with you because you know it.
You know it.
Even if you're not a believer. I think that's the magic. I think that's also one of the reasons why you won't see Black numbers decline like in the same way. And belief, not just attendance, because attendance might decline, but belief won't the same, because it's such a part of our identity.
I see.
That it would take a lot for Black people to just have like really low numbers walking away from Christianity. Now we have an identity thing. We learned this in the statistic. Black people have a hard time identifying blanketly as Christian right now, especially younger Black people. Because so if I meet you and I'm like, I'm a Christian, I don't want you to think I'm the MAGA hat wearing Christian.
That's the automatic assumption.
We don't know.
Yeah.
Or I don't want you to think I'm the kind of Christian who wants to lock babies in cages. You know what I mean? So how do I say to you I'm Christian, but you know what kind of Christian I am? And because we don't know how to do that, some people don't want to blanketly identify as Christian, even if they still have Christian beliefs, which is problematic.
Problematic. Is there something that people are self-identifying as?
Spiritual, or they want to be we're leaning more toward African religion or naturalists. And let me be clear, sometimes I don't think they're really participating in African spirituality. They just want to say, I'm Black.
Yes.
And spiritual.
I see.
Yeah. more than they're actually participating. And I think some people are exploring it seriously, but it's just like, how do I set myself apart so I'm different and I love people and, I'm not full of hate, and that's becoming more and more difficult to do.
At this point in the conversation, I wanted to bring it back to Reverend Bree's own story of calling, courage, and conviction. Growing up in a faithful Black church in Dallas, Texas, Brianna soon experienced the disconnect between her personal sense of calling and how church leadership and community reacted to that calling. Bree, can you tell us a little bit about your story?
Yeah, I have a weird one.
Take us back to the beginning. Broad strokes, what are a couple of things that are sort of like the stopping points or the shaping points for you?
So I had a really healthy faith as a child. My mother's from Grenada, Mississippi. My father's from Pineville, Louisiana. My dad's family, they're a little rough. They were not in church like that. Believers, but they weren't church kids. My mom raised us in church. She grew up AME, but we grew up Baptist. I was a part of a really healthy church. Now, here's the tricky thing. I was a part of a very healthy church that really helped me to grow and believe in myself. And, in the Black church, you learn your gifts in church. If I'm an orator, I'm going to find that out in Black church first. If I'm a musician, I'm going to find that out. If I'm going to be an actress, these things happen first in the Black church, almost like a community center for other people.
And why do you think that is?
So when we talk about segregation, there are a good number of Black people who believe integration was not good for us. We went into classrooms where people didn't want to teach us.
Integration was costly to the community.
Absolutely. We lost something. When they ended segregation, we lost a lot. Yeah. We had teachers who were next door, you know what I mean, who wanted to see my mom Marie win, my grandmother died when my mom was 14.
Uh-huh.
I got to take care of Marie. I got to make sure she succeeds. And then, when segregation is dismantled, by law only, and you have to go and you're taught by people who don't even want you there.
Mm.
And then we know a lot more now to understand that it is difficult, representation matters and what it means to rear somebody that you don't understand. So we feel like we lost a lot when segregation ended. So if you're in the Black church, you get to continue that. I get to continue to teach you. I get to continue to speak into your life. I get to continue to encourage you. The first person who told me I could do anything in the world was Sister Dixon. She said, Brianna, you can be Oprah. You can be an astronaut. You can be a president. Brianna, you can do anything, Yeah. And I was just like, she must be right, So that's kind of where that happened. So I had a really healthy childhood in church. I realized I was an intercessor. I was probably 10 by the time I knew.
10.
I found out in a Baptist church I had the gift of healing because I really believe if you lay hands on the sick, they shall recover. And I remember going through the church with my pastor and laying hands on people and they would come back and tell me they were healed. Or I remember being in my mom's Sunday school class for a second. I stayed in for prayer and they said all their prayer requests and they were like, who wants to pray? And I was like, I'm going to pray. I was probably 8 or 9. And so I pray, right, Nikki? So the next Sunday, people were like, this happened to me after, my prayer request. This happened. Brianna, can you come pray again? And my mom's like, no, she is not a genie, So I realized I had the gift of healing. I realized I was an innocent. I realized so much. Well, what I did not realize, because of how encouraging the church was, my pastor didn't believe in women in ministry.
Oh, is that right?
I know. Huh?
So you were surrounded in this nurturing space that was calling for these gifts from you.
And I was in the pulpit every month with my pastor.
Were you?
For prayer.
Ah.
So I didn't know he didn't believe in women in ministry.
So what happened when you discovered that?
Nothing. I wouldn't talk to him about it.
Okay.
I have a great mom, and I got into a car accident. That's why I have the scar on my forehead. A drunk driver hit me. I got a settlement. I have a good enough mom who did not spend my money. She kept it for college, And so that was kind of how I lived in college because the settlements would come out once a year until I was 21 or 22. And then another when I was 25. So my first year getting the money, I tied to my home church.
Okay.
And I said, thank you for all that you've done. I wouldn't be this person without you. By the way, I've accepted my calling. I thought he was going to be happy. Mm-hmm. Well, I just never heard from him. And I didn't think anything of it because I didn't ask him to say anything back. My children's pastor said he went into staff meeting and said, Brianna Parker accepted her calling. And not in a negative way. I think they kind of expected it. But I think I found out maybe 2 years later that he didn't believe in women in ministry. And I never wanted to talk to him about it because I didn't want him to hurt my feelings. I needed to see him in a certain way because of all he had done for me. But it didn't hinder me at all. I was like, well, that's him. Had nothing to do with me. You know, this is a place that I am everything I am because of Antioch. So I just didn't think anything of it. So that was the kind of childhood I grew up in. So I was always a person of faith, great faith. You know, I've overcome a lot of obstacles. I've had a lot of challenges that I just kind of expected to come my way. My mother says every day is opposite day for Brianna.
And what does she mean when she's saying that?
I don't care about anybody's no.
Oh.
Ever. Oh, no? Let's see. So every day is opposite day for me. And it's really a faith thing more than it is confidence, you know, like in myself. And so I was able to say yes to ministry, I think at 15.
15.
I knew I was called when I was 15. I would have these weird days. I would say, Mom, I don't think I should go to school. I want to spend time with God. And she'd be like, okay.
Wow.
I know. And so one of those days is when I started to get like visions and I knew I was called. And I said, Mom, I'm going to tell you a secret. Don't tell anybody. I'm called to ministry. I'm called to preaching. She said, okay, I won't tell anybody. My mama told everybody. She told everybody. I was so upset. I just didn't want the pressure. I didn't want anybody to tell me what they thought this looked like. So I went to college. At 17, Arizona State, #1 party school in the country. We were rated the most beautiful campus, and they weren't talking about landscaping. You know, so I go to this party school and knowing I'm called to preach. And I just kind of lived my life like that. I had fun. I was at every party. I was also at church every Sunday.
So
I was also
typical college experience plus
knowing I'm called.
Regular church attendance.
Absolutely. And it, again, another healthy situation. And so I'm feeling good about life, ministry, or whatever. And so it's time for me to graduate. And they're interviewing me because I graduate, you know, really early.
How old were you when you graduated?
I was 19. So my sister was diagnosed with end-stage kidney failure.
Oh, wow.
In Dallas. So I decided I'm going to go back home and be with my sister. She had already been sick, but, you know, they were trying to figure it out. So my nephew lived with us. My niece eventually came to live with us. And then I said, I'm going to go and be with Lisa. She has end-stage renal failure, so my family moves there. But I need a job, so I'm like, well, let me see what I'm going to do.
Beyond the resistance to a calling to preaching, it was Brianna's employment as an assistant pastor at a large justice and community-driven megachurch in Dallas that created a moment of crisis, not just for her career, but for her faith.
And I'm like, let me go to the church down the street, you know, see what they have for employment opportunities. Well, they were hiring. I said, well, let me apply for this. And I applied, and I think like November 17th. I believe I interviewed January 17th, and I started on February 17th.
Wow.
So I'm in this job and it's a mega church. It doesn't mean anything to me. I'm 25, working at a mega church. I'm the youngest person. I'm the only person who walked in credentialed with, you know, my degree and stuff.
And if you can help us pull back a little bit on this church, is this a Black church? Is it a multi-ethnic church?
Black church that's known for their justice work. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it's going to be like every other experience. Healthy, nurturing. It's going to grow me. Uh-huh. Oh, but it didn't.
Wow.
Those were some of the worst. Those were the absolute worst days of my life.
Working at this megachurch. What did you think that you were stepping into? And then what turned out to be true?
I thought I was stepping into a place that was going to nurture me and I was going to grow. I was going to become a better minister. I was going to understand pastoral care because that was my concentration. I thought I would become a better preacher. I thought I would develop these relationships with my colleagues. Like, I was sure it's going to be all the things. And what was it? It was a very competitive place. It was the first time that I saw myself as anybody's competition.
Wow.
It was the first time, if I'm honest, that I know this is crazy if you know my personality, but that's the first time I realized people didn't like me.
Yeah.
And I mean, with my mouth, you know, a lot of people probably didn't like me. But this is the first time I thought like people like would come together and not like me together as a collective.
Oh, wow.
Like they would band together.
Uh-huh.
I never really knew. I mean, I had people who just weren't in love with me, who may have been my teachers, but adults could always appreciate me and my drive, and that was not a good thing there. I think my drive is what bothered them. You know, I had a certain confidence in ministry because I knew God called me to it. That didn't seem to go over well. And a lot of it was because I had a supervisor who just didn't like me. And because everybody else knew his wrath, they went along with him. And then there was another lady who was at an executive level who did not like me. It was because she wanted to be like the pastor's, like, as far as women on staff, the one he loved most. And so she didn't care much for me. And don't forget, at first I just think I'm crazy because nobody's telling me what's happening behind the scenes. And I remember one of my male coworkers, because I was only a woman on the pastoral staff. One of my male coworkers said to me, I want to help you. I want to be here for you. But this guy in the executive level, he doesn't like you. And I just don't even want the drama, like, of being a friend or ally to you.
And was that the first you had heard that was the dynamic that you were living out? I
felt it.
Uh-huh.
But when you feel something, you think you're crazy at first. Like, you're like, is it just me?
Am I imagining things?
Oh, absolutely. Or is it me? Am I just not a great person? I didn't know it. You know what I mean? Like, do I need to temper my work? Well, probably. But do I, there's something about my actions or character that I need to change. And so I really didn't know what that was like. They didn't like the way I dressed. And they would talk about that, like send messages like her skirt is too short. Well, Nikki, I was olive oil. So there's no such thing as a too short skirt. Because ain't nobody looking at me. Sugar, I'm in Dallas, Texas, full of body.
You're talking about olive oil, Popeye's girlfriend.
Who had not a curve in sight.
Thank you.
Yes. Nobody cares about olive oil, And then I was talking to somebody on the business side and the creative team. And we were doing something and we were just really rocking and rolling. And I loved her being there. She was new, so she didn't really know how everybody else felt about me. Mm-hmm. And we were doing great work together. And then she said, Brianna, I'm going to have to stop working with you so much. And I said, why? She said, because the woman who's on the executive team doesn't like you.
Oh, wow.
And I'm going to pay for it if I'm your friend. And I said, well, you don't have to be my friend. I just want to get work done. Like, I'm not out here looking for friends. Yes. And she was like, I can't. It's gonna hurt me. And I just got here and I don't want to. I was like, dang, like, I just couldn't imagine it. Then I found out I was the lowest paid staff pastor. I'm the only one who walked in degreed.
You're the only one who had an MDiv.
Mm-hmm.
And you were the lowest paid.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. 10 years, nothing changed in my salary. Even when I said, hey, do you know I'm the lowest paid staff pastor? It's like, oh, we got to fix that. I'm going to do something about it. Never.
And do you have any sense as to like where these different points of opposition were coming from?
Now, let me say this. Now I understand this is not that unique.
Oh, okay.
So like in a megachurch, maybe they like you, right? But if they don't like you, the whole machine will stop to make sure you're not successful. That's not uncommon.
Right now, you're in your 20s. You're living out leadership. You sort of accepted a calling to preach. Mm-hmm. And you're trying to sort of press into that.
Yeah. So there's a certain amount of confidence I don't think they'd maybe seen. And I just believe that God always had greater. Not greater. Greater didn't even have to mean away from the church. Uh-huh. I just didn't think God was going to keep me in anything for too long past, this place of growth. And so that was an issue. And I mean, I think there are a lot of things I didn't understand. Like even in dress, I remember it was watch night. That is New Year's.
Mm-hmm. So watch night service, something going late into the evening.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And watch night was coming, and I asked my senior pastor, I was like, can I wear pants to watch night? Because, watch night people were like kind of like snazzy and had a little razzle dazzle. So I didn't want to dress in regular church clothes. I wanted to have something cute too. So I said, can I wear pants? And he was like, yeah, why would you ask me that? I was like, because we're not allowed to wear pants. He said, who told you that? And I said, the executive male. He was like, that's not true. So I didn't say anything. I just started to wear pants every now and then. And I remember we got another woman on staff who was a senior woman. She's like maybe her 60s. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, look, so-and-so, I say to the guy who told me I can't wear pants. I said, well, look, so-and-so is wearing pants and nobody seems to have a problem. He said, nobody wants to look at her legs. First of all, I see myself as skinny. I don't think anybody want to look at my legs either, So I don't even see myself like that.
Were you surprised that you faced that comment in the context of the church?
Yeah, I absolutely was. So I've been set up to be eye candy. Really? So I'm basing my wardrobe, something I hate. And only to know that I was eye candy? You old dirty man. Like, are you kidding me? And you have a daughter. And you're responsible for a full staff. At least half of us are women. And you're a predator.
For Brianna, so confident and full of faith in her calling from God into leadership, this experience of such a competitive and toxic ministry environment produced an incredible amount of tension for what it means to do church and to be the church. a new appreciation for the realities and shortcomings that affect and infect the church. But it was a productive tension in that it allowed her to see new pathways for rethinking and reforming church into something beautiful, brilliant, and joyful. As the title of her book says, she still does believe in the Black church. But what would that mean for her calling? How did that experience shape how you started rethinking church?
When I realized the machine could go against you and you could literally fail or just not be as successful, I knew there should be something better than that. But it made me rethink church because it was nothing like I had known. I'd always been in really healthy spaces.
Yes.
So I had to figure out if church was like this or if that church was like that. And what did it look like to create something better? And what did it look like to have a place where people could flourish? That's human flourishing. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, how can you open up the doors of a church for staff or parishioners? Flourishing is a problem. Like, mm-hmm. What are you inviting me into? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, human suffering, that's going to come anyway. You know what I mean? Like, it was just crazy. So, what does it mean to have a place where people can flourish? Mm-hmm. Where people don't have to hide their gifts, where people can be their, like full selves. And in all their glory or lack thereof, whichever one, and it's okay. Mm-hmm. I also started to rethink church for myself, and if I needed to be a part of church, if that was necessary for me. So I decided I was not going to give up on church, but I didn't need to work for one. Because that experience was so bad for me that I didn't want to bleed on people, and I didn't want to bring unhealthy attitudes, behaviors, and feelings into healthy spaces. And so I had to really decide what it looked like for me to still engage in church. And so I have a book, tons of merch, and it's I Still Believe in the Black Church. Mm-hmm. And it comes from a couple of places. One, the data told me I had every reason to still believe in the Black church when we did State of the Black Church study. Mm-hmm. Two, I was working with churches who really wanted to do better, who wanted to be better, who wanted to produce better in people. So I had the reason. And then I had to say it too, because I just wasn't going to walk away from it. Mm-hmm. It was my own proclamation. Like, I still believe that this is where I belong. I still believe that this is good for me. This is healthy for me, that this place can love me. And I really needed that. Mm-hmm. I mean, don't forget, Nikki, I'm in church when I find out people can collectively turn against you. Mm-hmm. Now, I wasn't naive. You know what I mean? Did I know people could? Sure. But I thought that would happen when I was working for the county attorney's office. So I don't know that you can ever come back from that. I don't know that you can ever forget that or unsee it or unfeel it. Mm-hmm. So now I have to walk knowing the truth is every church space is not healthy.
Well, I love that part of what you do is you walk alongside churches now, mm-hmm. right? And that there's sort of this way that there's this touch point that you have. But also I appreciate the title. I hear in that both a hope and a promise.
Oh, yeah.
As well as like a conclusion statement. It's kind of like, I believe in the Black church and I'm like believing in the Black church, right? Like
I always say, in most situations, if you're going to make a statement, like connect to belief, you're either going to prophesy or testify. Either you're saying, I want to believe in it, mm-hmm. or after all I've been through, I can still believe in it.
Yes.
So I was probably doing both at that time.
Unpack for me, what is it that you believe about the Black church?
Oh, I believe the Black church is the best place for Black people to be in community, to grow, to learn, to flourish, to figure out who they are, to evolve, to find foundation. I believe the Black church is great. I do understand why people appreciate integration. And I know this is not popular, but I appreciate Sunday segregation. Can I tell you that? And I know people are probably, Twitter fingers are going to be out there telling me I'm a racist. No, I'm just saying, for Black people, we need a place where we can go, where we don't have to wonder if you understand us enough to not be afraid of us. If you understand us enough to love us well, if you understand us enough to relate well enough that I don't have to listen to a message that's offensive. I tell people all the time, I have friends who go to multicultural churches and everything is good until a black man gets shot in the middle of the street or it's election time. And then that's when they come back to the black church. And I'm like, come one, come all, we still love you.
I wanted to know more about what church means to her at an emotional, heart level. As Bree recovered from the hurt and the pain of this experience, she didn't only take it as objective data, important as that is. For her own personal life of faith, she needed to return to the comforting, safe space that church was for her in her youth. What does it feel like for you to spend Sunday morning in the Black church? What does that feel like in your body?
It feels like a heated blanket on a cold, rainy day. It feels like a meal at Crustaceans after I hadn't had it in 4 years.
A meal at Crustaceans, your favorite restaurant.
Yes. It feels like going to bed for a church nap and waking up to the smell of beef tips and rice and peach cobbler and pound cake and collard greens, macaroni and cheese and hot water cornbread. It is familiar. It is safe. It is warm. It's everything.
Because what is that in contrast to what you have every day outside of the Black church?
Oof, child. You just don't know. Here's the thing, Nikki. I really don't know when I walk my dog. I was walking my mom's dog, right? And one of my neighbors, I live in a predominantly white neighborhood. One of my neighbors, it was, sunset.
Okay.
One of my white, male, older neighbors said to me, "You be careful out here. It's dark. I want you to get home safely." Child, I could cry right now. That is crazy. I don't know if I get to come home if I walk my dog too late.
In your own neighborhood.
In my own neighborhood where I pay good taxes.
Mm-hmm.
It's a scary world out there.
And so Sunday morning is a warm weighted blanket.
It is. Now, it's not perfect. Some places are better than others, to be clear. None of them are perfect. People at church get on my nerves too. But I know there's no malicious intent. I know I'm not going to get killed unless as a foreigner, an outsider. Mm-hmm. And I say foreigner as in somebody who doesn't belong to our community, comes in and harms us. I know I'm safe. I know I'm, for the majority of the time, is understood. Those things happen and they don't happen anywhere else. I can't tell you another place. I don't know a place where you can get what you get from the Black church. I just don't know that it exists. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I appreciate Sunday segregation. And I know it won't make people feel good. But if you don't like it, build a better world. Create something that allows me to feel safe. I'm not even saying comfortable. Let me know that I get to make it home. Yes. I've been to white churches. I've even worked at white churches, especially when I lived in Pasadena. But, you're just waiting for the offense to come. And not that you want to, but it's going to come. So what are you going to say that's going to totally offend me or maybe even piss me off? And I'm never going to be able to come back here again. Mm-hmm. Or, there's certain subjects you either stay away from or you offend me when you speak of. And then sometimes to not say anything is offensive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's a documentary and the pastor's talking about how he handled race. Now, when he's talking about his own failures in his personal life, he is repentant. When he talks about how he handled race, when his members were coming to him telling him there was a problem, he said he thinks he did all he could do. Oh. And I was like, what? In what world? In a couple weeks, did you do all that you could do?
Wow.
And so sometimes you also don't want to deal with the disappointment.
Yes.
Of the person really not being who you think they should be as a believer.
There's a higher expectation, right? Within the Christian community, you hope for more.
You do.
Brianna's ministry today has a profound impact on local congregations to find their true expression, both of their Black identity and their Christian identity, but with an urgent new mission to improve its self-understanding, its community relations, and its outreach, so that the Black church might continue to offer that respite and love and safety and support that Brianna has known herself. You do a lot of work in the broader Black community, as well as working with the Black church. Is there something that you think the Black church could learn from that's sort of a commonplace thing or a best practice in the broader Black community?
Yeah, the church should learn from the innovation and brilliance of Black community. See, Black church is slow to move. You know, I have this thing with Black Millennial Cafe. We blaze trails. We don't eat dust. The Black church eats dust. The Black community blazes trails. You know, when you're looking on the internet and whether it's art or, you know, whether it's comedy or whether it's medical research or whatever it is, you know, Black people are so incredibly brilliant and innovative. Absolutely. You know, Nikki, I'm still surprised that I get to preach all over the country and run BMC. Because in our world, you're one or the other. Are you going to be a preacher or are you going to be a business owner? But you don't usually get to do both. And especially not as a woman. So the fact that I am still preaching around the country to this day, the fact that I'm still like taking on clients and like really having a successful company still blows my mind. I stop many days and just weepy, sometimes tearful, and just say thank you. You know, and that's because I get to take Black brilliance and Black innovation into Black churches. So really I take what I'm learning from the community or people from the community to transform what we're seeing in churches. So I really wish the Black church would take that from the community. What do I wish the community would take from the Black church? Maybe, what it means to build firm foundations for children. You know, we don't have as many community centers and things like that anymore. If the community could build that, you know what I mean, like, and give people their start. I mean, they used to have Debbie Allen's School of Dance and things like that. We have that a lot less in the community. And it's not that we haven't seen it before. I just wish they would adopt it again. That we're making a commitment to teach children, that we're having Sonia Sloan, Dr. Sonia Sloan in Humboldt, Texas, has a STEM camp. She's an orthopedic surgeon. You don't see many Black women orthopedic surgeons. And so she has a STEAM camp because she actually adds in arts. I think we need that. I think we need places in the community who are just as committed to creating a foundation as the church is.
Yes.
Because I got to explore. Like, I remember I was singing in the choir. My mother said, "That's not your gift. Come down." You know, like.
I love hearing your voice.
You know, don't do it. But you can show pray. You know what I mean? You're a great orator.
Yes.
And, you know, you just really get to figure it out. But you get to figure it out. And it doesn't have to be on social media where people are laughing at you. It doesn't have to be in your class where people don't have the same kind of community. You know, where people can't laugh or they'll get in trouble. You know what I mean? Like, or just a place that's just filled with more love. Like, we're going back to vacation Bible school at my home church. Because you know what it meant to be around, to learn with other kids who looked like you.
Yes.
And to have kids who are younger than you, that you wanted to nurture, kids who are older than you, that you looked up to, just for that week, and have good food and good, you know, like singing. Like, that was amazing. I'm so sad I won't be there to take my great nephew this year. He's 4. So I'm like, you're going to go, you know, when you're 5, but I have work I have to do. But I want to take him there. I want him to know what it feels like to be surrounded by people who love you, want to see you at your best, want to make sure you grow. You know, will platform you, highlight you. And if you fail, it's okay, because, you know, in the Black church, when you're doing anything on a platform and you're messing up, they just say, "That's right, baby." You know, or they just say, "Sing for Jesus," or "It's all right." You know, you can't even really mess up in the Black church because they're going to make you feel so good.
Yes.
You're going to be all right.
I love that. I love that picture of church as this place where folks are discovering what it means to fully flourish in all dimension. They're offering their gifts with boldness.
Absolutely.
And grace. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that picture. It's fantastic. What should the future of the Black church look like?
It should be a place that's inclusive. We're far beyond tolerance. We need to stop that. And we need to get to a place of deep love. That don't ask, don't tell policy is unhealthy. And we know anyway. I remember I was at a church and they were like, you know, as long as we don't know, as long as he stays in the closet, you know, we're fine. I said, well, if the closet is here, it's made of glass. We all know. You know what I mean? So are we going to not love him if he says this to us? Or are we just going to continue to love him? Like, why does he have to be quiet in order to be loved? If we're clear, we already know. And so I think the Black church needs to become inclusive, celebratory, deeply loving everyone. We're going to have to make some decisions about what we really believe. and stop hoping that nobody ever calls us to the carpet on it. We're going to have to figure out what it means to help people to flourish again. So we're really good at children. So we learned when we were looking at the data that children's ministry, children's programming makes people reflect on children's ministry as the best time or happiest time in the Black church.
Oh, wow.
For parents and for children.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Because parents do, because they've developed a cohort of people
Yes.
who all have children.
Yes.
And children do because they have really intentional programming. We need to do that for everyone. I think life stage ministry in ways we haven't seen it, and this is something that I still keep exploring, I think is the future of the church. Because the worst thing you can do is think that you're the only one going through something.
So kind of like young adults, young professionals, people in different stages of life or different...
People who are dealing with fertility, you know?
Mm-hmm.
People who are trying to be entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
People who have divorced.
Mm-hmm.
People who are desperately wanting relationship. That's different than singles ministry.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
That's true.
I think when we learn how to journey with people.
Yes, in all their complexity and specifics.
All of it.
Yeah.
Because everybody has it.
Yeah.
I think we're going to be in a great place. I'm sure we will. I still believe in the Black church. I still have a lot of hope for the Black church. And you know why I have hope for the Black church? Because they let us in. Us as in BMC. That we get to come in and help them transform spaces. That we get to come in with something very foreign like data and tell them this is why we're going to make these changes. I am still amazed that Black men let me come in. They pay me money to tell them what to do. And because they pay me so much money, they do it.
And the data is sort of saying, this is what the community is saying they want. This is what the community says that they believe.
Yeah.
This is...
Sometimes now, when we research, we have to filter through the lies, right? So when we did State of the Black Church study, one thing they said, I think, how many times you go to church? And they, like the majority of people said 2 or 4. It was stupid. It was such a lie. I was just like, this is a lie.
That's what they tell their mom.
Yeah, but this is what, don't forget, anonymously, they're still saying this. So you know what that told me? This is how they want to be seen. This is who they want to be. Let's create the kind of loving community. Let's create the kind of programming that allows them to be who they want to be.
Yeah. And
I have to be a culture creature. So I have to do a whole lot of stuff. Some stuff I love to do, some stuff I don't. I have to watch stuff that I'm not into that the rest of the world is into, because you eat dust if you're not on top of culture.
What do you think the broader church can learn from the Black church?
What it means to be the beloved community. What it means to be a safe space. Well, I don't know if the broader church can know what it means to be a safe space, because I don't think they need a safe space in the same way we do. But I think to just know that a safe space is needed, that means you know how ugly that world is for us. But they could really learn, the beloved community, what it means to just know that you can start from birth, and stay there until you're gray and grow and thrive and excel. Now, let me say one thing I think churches miss. The church is the only place that for 60 years you can invest in. And the best you can get back, not from God, I know God is going to bless it, tangibly, is maybe some benevolence money or a really bad repast dinner when you die. I think white churches do it more. Black churches don't do it much at all. We're going to have to learn what economic development should look like in our communities.
Oh, interesting.
And we're going to have to offer people more than benevolence once a year, if they need it, and more than a really horrible repast dinner. We're going to have to learn how to invest in our community, to gather resources, to create real community wealth so that people are getting more.
So that whole community inside and nearby the church.
Absolutely.
Is lifted up.
Because guess what? If I give 10% here for 60 years and I can look and say my child got piano lessons, my child learned, how to code, my child got a scholarship, my child was able to learn, ballet, the young adults, when my child was a young adult, she was able to get startup money, or she was able to learn how to start a business and, start an LLC. Or when my family was without employment, they had the systems there. So, my son-in-law didn't have to be unemployed more than 6 weeks because we had systems set up for him. That's worth giving to.
Yes.
Now, I'm not saying don't tithe. I'm not saying don't do what honors God, but, it's a different day.
What an amazing picture of a church being there for the whole life of a family.
Absolutely.
Bri, can you say a bit more about Black Brilliance and what it is that you see?
Yeah, so Black Brilliance is like finding our way when no one has made a way. Black Brilliance exposes things that everyone else has ignored, maybe disregarded. Black Brilliance is when a Black, medical doctor decides to enter research fields for a while and recognizes that maybe something like high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and like the markers that we look for and everyone else should be different for Black people because of all the different like stressors or the way our body processes something differently. Something that nobody would care about if they were not a part of our community. Black Brilliance looks like you have a young girl who goes at the inauguration and does a poem that really knocks everyone off their feet. But it is unfamiliar to people once it's exposed in a national or global kind of way.
Yes.
Black Brilliance is when we look at, there was just a story with a young boy. He was graduating as like valedictorian, I guess they have that now, of middle school in St. Louis.
Okay.
And he wanted to go to his graduation. He wanted to be celebrated. He wanted to have this moment. And so he walked 2 hours to get to the celebration because his grandfather's car broke down. He gets there with holes in his shoes.
Is that right?
He gets there sweaty.
The valedictorian.
But he gets there.
Yes.
When he gets there, and I love Dr. Colin Smith. I know her from St. Louis. She is the president of, I think it's Harris Stowe. She gets there and sees tenacity and Black Brilliance and offers him a scholarship for college because she can recognize Black Brilliance as a Black woman looking in the face of this Black boy who is fighting and walking until he has holes in his shoes so that he can experience another level of Black boy joy that you don't get to get in other places that's recognized differently by a Black woman. Black Brilliance is all over. I mean, let's be clear. I mean, I am Black and brilliant, but I wouldn't want to toot my own horn. But I say I'm Black and brilliant because I looked at an area nobody else cared about. Nobody cared about research and data. Data was an option pre-pandemic. Data is the done data post-pandemic. But it wasn't hot when I started. Nobody cared. People thought I was going to go broke. People said, if you want to really have something successful, you got to study everybody, not just Black people. But I was able to be grounded enough in who I was to say that I am going to bring something amazing to my community because we need it. And they will catch up to me if they have to. But I'm still going to give everything I think I'm called to do. Black Brilliance is seeing something that is necessary to expose to the wider world to benefit your community. It's not using your gifts in traditional ways, but flipping everything on its head to bring the world something new. And we've seen it. I mean, what is the world without Black invention? But beyond that, we're creating things like, even in like psychology, we're giving ourselves a new lane. Self-care looks different when you talk to a Black psychologist and they're teaching us what it means to nap and how it heals our body.
Yes.
I mean, it's just, you have Tama Bryant, who is just brilliant. And I mean, she exhibits Black brilliance time and time again. Black brilliance, when we can see it and appreciate it, it leads to Black joy. Black people need more joy always. Black joy is more than just being happy. Black joy looks like someone who, I don't know if you remember on social media, you saw these pictures of like Black men frolicking.
Yes.
And it was like, what are they doing?
Yes.
Black joy is when you can be a 200-something pound Black man, maybe with locks in your hair, and frolic. Because we don't get to frolic.
That's right.
We have to work hard. We have to provide. We have to do all these things that the world says, but we don't always get to just revel in joy and do things that don't look cool or normal or the standard. And so I think those things are necessary in the Black community.
Thank you, Bri. That was fantastic. I could talk to you for hours.
Listen, I could talk to you. We are going to talk for hours.
That's right.
Remember? We committed to this.
The Black brilliance that Reverend Bri shines and embodies and helps other leaders and communities to shine is a beacon that guides the Black church towards a joy. The kind of joy, as the gospel spiritual says, this joy that I have, the world don't give it, and the world can't take it away. The gift of this brilliance to the world outside the Black church is a model for rethinking church. The spiritual power of innovation, creativity, and expression of authentic love is a promising model for rethinking and reforming the church today. For the sake of the family of God, that is itself the epitome of gospel brilliance that leads to gospel joy. Credible Witness is brought to you by the Rethinking Church Initiative. Produced and edited by Mark Laberton, Sari Martin Concepcion, and Evan Rosa. And I'm your host, Nikki Toyamasito. Thanks to Fuller Seminary, Christians for Social Action, and Brenda Salter McNeil for sharing her book title with our podcast. Special thanks to all of our conversation partners in the Rethinking Church Initiative and Network, both public and private. And above all, thank you for your own courageous listening and your own credible witness to the gospel. For more information, visit crediblewitness.us.